Hello, everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. We're at fmtrain.tv where we're trying not to blow up the house, which is really awesome. We have a number of guests today with us. It's very exciting. We will get to that momentarily. Real quick, as a reminder for those of you who are expecting to have the 30-day training today, let me just pop this open for you real quick. This is our upcoming broadcast schedule. If you go to fmtrain.tv, press the left tab, and you can see that today is a special audible. It's like when you're playing American football and you realize that you're not ready for what today is, you got to call an audible and change the play at the line, which is what we're doing today and tomorrow. So today we're going to be talking about FileMaker 19.5, which shipped this morning. Very exciting. We have a couple of guest stars here with us today. They are very famous. Starting Friday, we'll be picking up the 30-day basic training. This is basic training for people who are new to the FileMaker platform. They're evaluating FileMaker for the first time. And what we're doing is we're doing basic training and also showing how to take a CRM solution that's pretty simple, straightforward, totally unlocked and free, and how to customize that. So instead of just learning basics and then you get to start from scratch, we're going to show you how to customize that and get going further, farther, faster, right? So that's very exciting. Now today's live stream is all about 19.5, and to help us with that today, we have Andy LeCates, and also we have Connor Brock, who I've never actually had on our show before. Both these gentlemen have an outstanding history. Connor is from the engineering group. Connor, you want to give us a quick description of what you do in real life, or do you actually have a real job? What is your job?
This is, I guess, the closest I've ever come to having a real job. So thank you, Richard. It's good to be here. I'm in the engineering team. I'm on the QA side, so I'm very closely involved with the coders who code FileMaker and QA testing all parts of the FileMaker product. So server, pro, go. That's what I do.
Cool. Well, there's a lot of that in here today, so you're going to be probably the guest star of this, helping us out. Andy, I've got a couple slides up here up front before we start freewheeling the conversation. But from your perspective, what does 19.5 represent? I mean, obviously, it's clearly Claris is doing this agile development where we get these like quarterly updates kind of thing. So that continues to be a thing.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks, Richard, again for having us. I know that we came in kind of last minute and putting this together, and so appreciate you adjusting the schedule. And for the audience today, hope that's not a bad surprise, but we're pretty excited about this release, and I hope you all are too. So thank you. To your question, then, Richard, I think there's a couple different angles on that. One is that we released 19. How long ago? It's been well over a year. Are we coming up on 2 years yet?
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of significant updates on it, and we've had a big focus in 19 on opening the platform, making it more extensible, making it more capable, allowing you to deploy in Linux and your own cloud or whatever you want to do, and extend it with JavaScript and more. We've also had a lot of focus on the quality of the platform, about performance, about stability and security. And this release represents all of those things, right? We're just advancing the FileMaker platform in a lot of meaningful ways that our core developer cares about. At the same time, for context, Richard, I was on here a couple of weeks ago and we were chatting about the problem solver circle and Claris Studio and where we're going, with that. And as we announce all that, and we're talking about the future of the FileMaker platform being Claris branded, we're trying to be very explicit that FileMaker has a future, that we care about it, and we're continuing to advance this platform. So I hope everyone sees this particular release as yet more evidence of that, right? We're going to continue to advance FileMaker. Your skills, your tools will continue to get better, and this is just one chapter in that story. So thanks for having us.
The goal today is to basically bring everyone up to date on what's going on. And we do have built out this morning, we built out new Windows server on Amazon, and also a Linux server on Amazon. And so we can demo those, we can look at them, we can answer questions. So we don't have a lot of content. This whole live stream is going to be over in like 15 minutes unless you folks have questions. It's fairly... we can dive into stuff, dive into bugs, dive into things that have been adjusted and directed. We got Connor here. You can ask him a lot of questions. So start shooting off the questions. Just keep in mind that me and Margaret will be playing air traffic control and feeding questions to the team. So real quick, I want to point out that this is a release a lot like 19.3. There was a ton of bugs fixes. That's Andy LeCates drawing that truck at one point said a ton of beep fixes and improvements, right? But we had to censor that out because we're not allowed to say certain 4-letter words with them. And then we put Connor in there. Hopefully in the future, we can get Connor with his hands on the wheel, driving the truck with all the bug fixes. Upwards of almost 400 fixes in this release. It's a pretty big deal. A lot of things that I consider kind of not really fixes, and they're kind of features, but we'll get to that. It's a lot of amazing stuff. So let's just talk about this real quick. So updated support. Andy, Connor, if you folks want to interrupt in here. In fact, I do have a question here. So support OS for Pro. Obviously, it's essentially the same as we had last time. With the one question is that when I was looking at the some of the early documents on 19.5, they say that Windows 8.1 is supported on 19.5. Is Windows 8.1 supported, Connor, or not really?
I don't think let me double check this. I want to give you accurate information on
Okay,
it.
so you check it and we will loop back to you, because I have 2 spots where it's different, and that's why I already threw that's like a super 95-mile-an-hour curveball right at his head. I have to walk him, right? So there we go. So essentially, it's the same operating systems being supported. If Margaret has posted the links, we've collected all the relevant links for today, and we've got a single document where you can grab all these links and all these pages right here. These are just essential screenshots. So if you're looking at the server, you have Mac server, you got Windows server.
Richard, not supported on Windows 8.
Not supported. Okay, yeah. So this document here is, so you have to have at least Windows, I guess, 10, right? So Windows 10 or 11 for the Pro. And then for server, you've got all these flavors. I lose track of all these servers. All I know is I go to Amazon and Jacob helps us and we spin up a new server, and it runs an EC2 server, which is great. And so then we got, but the change on this release is Ubuntu. So LTS, lame technical support, is not the acronym for that. It's long-term. Is that what long-term, Jacob? Do I have long-term support? Is that what that one is?
Yep.
Yeah. And that means that it's like they're going to try to keep it around for a while, so other things might be deprecated, but they're going to try not to shoot that version. And so it's like the 04 releases. So 1804, there's support for that. Then there's the new Ubuntu 2004 long-term support. So in fact, is that what we did today? Did we use Ubuntu 20?
Yes, we did.
Wow, fancy. We're very fancy today. Questions along the way, Margaret? Are we good so far?
I might want to reiterate that 19.5 is coming out today, because I've had a couple people ask me when
it's already here. It's already here.
4 hours ago. Yep.
Yep, it's already shipped. So it's available.
It won't, as yes, it will not show up in your Pro immediately if you're expecting to check for an update and suddenly be able to download it immediately, but you can go fetch the upgrader or go to your license page and get a full installer, etc.
Yeah, there may be a delay on this part right here. Yeah, see, so right here, it's this copy of 19.4 right here already still says it's up to date. Slowly but surely, they are going to turn this on for everyone. If you want it immediately, go to the claris.com, go to the bottom and updates, and you mentioned this, but yeah, go to the updates, and there'll be an updater that you can run to update your stuff. So back to this. So we got that. We got the Ubuntu server. We're going to talk about that. This one was interesting here too, because this does come up. These screenshots are all on the same page, which is really quite good. And it talks about the minimum RAM, minimum hardware, all sorts of minimum browsers for WebDirect, etc. Really a well architected single page to go to understand compatibility. I just screenshot some of the essential ones that I consider essential. So if you're running this server, these are the clients that you can go backwards to, right? Basically 1804, which is nice. And then the iOS app SDK, etc. And then this is Claris Cloud, right? So this is their service, SaaS, software as a service offering right here. Very similar conceptually. And the compatibility is very, very similar. So new features. Let's talk briefly about new features. I'm going to pivot and jump into this. Git Live Text is an interesting feature. It's Mac OS, iOS, and what it does is if you have an image, as in an image in a container, you can run this function, and it will extract the text for you. It doesn't extract text out of PDFs, which I found out almost immediately, right? Which was kind of like, oop. But I thought I'd mention that before one of you yells at me and says it doesn't do that. Also, barcode support. Connor, do you know what barcode this is? Because I don't know I've run into this barcode before.
I can tell you the name of that barcode, but I don't know if I can tell you much about what makes
Okay.
that barcode unique, really.
I think, Richard, the driver for this one was largely our community of Japanese users. So
Okay.
it may not be a barcode that you've been familiar with here. That is my understanding from a prior meeting. So.
Well, for those of you wondering about this, I'll just mention this real quick, is that a third of the loosely, and I'm going to say this is a loose statement, a third of the customers that use FileMaker in the United States, or North America, shall I say, a third are Japanese. That's a huge demographic for customer base for Claris. And the third is everyone else. And so Claris works hard to support the Japanese market as best they can, as they should. That's a third of their customers. And then there's this real QR code integration, allows you to try to read the QR code. Once again, that is another neat one. Anything to add on that? Either of you guys on that one? I have not played with that one specifically. Nope.
Yeah, just that we're trying to leverage the hardware that exists. The built-in camera. You've got a camera on your laptop. Let's use it.
Okay, cool. All right, very good. Real quick, I want to talk about this function right here. Can you folks see that? Because my other things are in the way here. There we go. Move it down. There we go. Git Live Text. So this is the function. This is a very cool one. I would love to see more of this kind of stuff. It's just things that you have that Claris is leveraging the underlying operating system to get this. So it's a function. You target the container. You specify the language, and then out comes the results. And this is kind of the end of the show, the slideshow right here, in terms of me doing dog and pony. I built this. I said, well, I got to try this out. So this is a training docs database. Some of you who watch our live streams have seen this before. This is a container. This is a PNG right here. There's a script step that I wrote the script here real quick. It's if you're in Zoom, you're not going to see this, but if I zoom in for the rest of you, you can see this right here. We're doing a set field command, or whatever command you want to use. You use the Git Live Text function. I'm going to target a container to extract the data out of it. It's going to set over here, and then I trap for an error condition. There's not a lot in the help documentation about what the error conditions might be. I think it's all kind of, we're going to learn as we go. But if I run this script right here, it extracts out the text, which could be useful. There's times where I don't use it for something like this for 6 months, and suddenly I need OCR, basically optical character recognition. So that's pretty great. If you actually have a document like a PDF, like an invoice, when you run it, you get a question mark. So it doesn't, the operating system or whatever is going on under the hood doesn't process PDFs, right? So
it needs an image file.
Yeah, it needs a legit image file. So JPEG, PNG, those are the big ones, of course. I guess probably.
Yeah, I believe, Richard, just as a qualification, Live Text is an Apple feature. So Connor, can you confirm what platforms it runs on?
Yeah, that's. I think that's something that's new to Monterey and iOS 15, that introduced those features that we're just leveraging.
Yeah, there's
Mac OS and iOS.
Yeah, there's been some amazing new features from Apple. I remember we were playing with the continuity camera a while back, and if you haven't seen that, that is just phenomenal integration. Just like stupid, it's like Hollywood movie, sci-fi. Where you grab your camera and you flick it, and it goes on the computer screen or something like that. It's great.
Here's a cool feature though. If folks haven't seen, Apple's demonstrations of it, it's the idea that you can run around a city and shoot a picture of a billboard or a storefront and maybe get a Yelp article on it or something like that. But we think there's business utility here as well. You can get text out of images. There's probably many business workflows that we can apply this to. So we're kind of excited to get this one in here.
Cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pivot my screen control to Jacob Taylor. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Mr. Taylor, are you ready to receive this?
All right. Yep, I am now.
Jacob is like a baby version of Wim DeCourt. Literally, I've met two people of very similar personalities and everything else. And they're both.
Jacob wasn't here last time I was here, so I'm really excited, Richard.
Oh, this is, yeah, he's an instigator of problems on the ETS thread. So yeah, so this is a server you built today.
Yep.
And is there, just off the cuff, is there anything different that we should know about, or any concerns that you had? Does it look pretty straightforward?
There's two definite user-facing things. One is I would classify it as moving the chairs around, but in a positive way, which is if you go to the backups, this now kind of makes sense. You have progressives and parallels are over here rather than being over in the configuration area.
Well, let's spend the perfect time. Let's talk about parallel backup. So parallel backup is really a new feature. It kind of makes me a little nervous because it's so earth-shatteringly interesting, right?
Yep.
Connor, you want to take a swing at describing what that is? Or
Sure. Yeah, it's not a new type of backup, but it's a new behavior for your existing backups that if you have a lot of databases on the same server, some of them may be more busy than others at the time when you are performing a backup. And up until this point, we've had to get a lock on all of the files at the same time to begin backing any of them up. But what parallel backups really means is that while you're using your database, while the users are using it, FileMaker server is learning behind the scenes what the relationships are between the files, so it knows how to automatically sort of keep them in different groups. And if there's a group of files that can be gotten a lock on sooner than the rest, it'll go ahead and do that and begin the backup on that group of files.
so if you were hosting a server, so I'm just going to do a hypothetical here. So you're hosting for a company and you have like your sales solution, and maybe it's multiple files on a sales solution, then you have your engineering solution, and they're both on the server. Then the FileMaker server is going to try to back up either sales or engineering, that group together, right? Is that kind of the idea, I guess?
Yeah, that's right. And if FileMaker server can't really divide your files into groups, it kind of just treats them all as one group. And then if you look in the event logs, that'll be recorded as group 0. And essentially that you'll see the same behavior of having parallel backups on or off at that point.
Okay. So it's been said. And so for those of you wondering about this, so Hansa from 24U is kind of the FileMaker community official, semi-official performance nerd. I want to say that in a very nice way. We'll have him on the show here in about a week, 2 weeks or so, somewhere in there. And he's going to talk about performance, his like stopwatch action going on with the new server. So I don't have any percentages yet. Connor, do you have any percentages about any sorts of numbers kind of stuff? You guys are not normally a numbers thing.
Yeah, it's been difficult to come up with something to share on this, because I think that the times that you see the benefit are just so specific to the file.
Yeah.
But it is meant for performance reasons that we're doing this. And we've got some test scenarios internally where it's like a night and day difference, where you'll be waiting a very long time versus not. But I don't know that any of that's really representative of what kind of expectation I could set for people.
That learning behavior is kind of interesting. Like,
okay.
I don't know if you exhausted that one, Connor. The one will need to attach and use the system using 19.5 in order to evoke the learning. Is that correct?
Yes. So yeah, this requires some logic on the client side as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Pro.
Okay,
So as you log in with 19.5 Pro and you're accessing the server and you're invoking relationships and opening files and that sort of thing, that's what instructs the server as to what these group definitions might be, so that it can more accurately work. So it may take a little bit of learning time up front, where you may just want to send somebody in there to just click every button and then prepare the server or something, right?
Right. Okay. So that's a feature that's kind of 19.5 dependent. I guess our Pro 19.5 dependent, or client Go as well.
That does not mean that everyone needs 19.5. It means that someone needs 19.5 to teach the server what the file groups are.
Interesting. That's some new level of intelligence. I like that. All right, so I want to talk about the other. It's kind of like a major kind of thing that you guys slid in here, and somewhere along my slideshow, I should have put it in the slideshow, is this idea that was it 19.3 we added server side sort. So if the server wasn't too busy, and if it could do it for you logically, the server would try to do the sort for you on the server side historically. So let me back up real quick for those of you who are fairly new. FileMaker server, normally if you do a sort or totals or summaries or a bunch of math or stuff like that, if you're a Pro or Go client, the server just dumps all the data over the side of the ship. Literally, it unloads everything and sends it down through the network to the client. The client does all the work. A lot of the times you're just waiting for all the data to come to you, and then you got to chew through it and process it. And so we've been asking about this for a long time, and Claris has started putting this in, where if the server isn't too busy, and if all the little dependencies are set correctly automatically, it will do the sort for you. So if you have a bunch of records and the server isn't overtaxed like 25% or whatever that number is, it will do the sort for you on the server side and send that down to you. Anytime you do things on the server, like a script on the server with PSOS, something like that, you get this huge performance improvement. And so this is one of those areas. So I think it was 19.3 they added server-side sorting if it can do it and your server's not overtaxed. In this release, it's summary fields. Is that what I have? Summary fields?
Mhm.
And so if the summary fields, if it can do the calculation for you, there's not some sort of local client dependency on that calculation, like a get function, like somehow there's a get function that has get, client window size or something like that. If the server can handle it and it's not too busy, it will do the sort for you much faster automatically. Now, for that to happen, do you need to have the 19.5 client running too? I assume, Connor? Probably.
Let's see. Yeah, this is something that does require both as well. Yeah.
Okay. And so, so a lot of people tend to have older clients and newer servers or vice versa. Some of these features, if you really want to benefit from the performance, you're going to need to make sure you upgrade both sides of your equation, right? The server side as well as the client. That's a big one for those of you performance. We talk about performance here all the time.
You answered one, but I'll ask it out loud just so people can get a response. Will live text work in WebDirect or on Windows Server?
Yeah, it's based on the Apple underlying technology of the, well, with WebDirect, if it was on a Mac server, I don't know. Maybe.
I can double check. I feel like we did explore that scenario. My inclination is to say let me get back to you and
Okay, cool.
confirm before I say for sure.
Yeah,
But definitely on Windows Server, it does require Mac.
Well, we're here every day at 1 o'clock. Every day the training is going on. So every day these people are getting smarter. They're not going to ask you easy questions, Connor, just up front about that. All these questions are going to be tough. If it was easy,
we're not going to lie to you and make stuff up either, Richard. So, we're going to be careful here. It's all good. We'll get a good answer.
Cool.
Another question from YouTube. Can you take a screenshot of a PDF and it would work?
Yes,
Sure.
that'll work.
Yeah.
Cool. There you go.
You just have to get the screenshot to, kick it out and then suck it in.
And cool. Windows 10 standard is supported, question mark?
For which? Pro, yeah.
Yeah, for Pro, I think was what they were asking.
For Pro.
There's always someone who wants to take a desktop OS and try to turn it into a server, right? And so
is standard the new name for home? Because if standard is the new name for home, the answer may be no. At least I'm sorry, I'm probably talking over the Claris people here, but historically they've only supported the Pro editions of the Windows client, Windows operating system, not server side, not server side. It's always been Pro has been the minimum requirement.
Okay, so Kyle found a couple new JSON functions. I'm not really gonna. We probably pick those apart in a different broadcast, or maybe we do them a little bit tomorrow. But there are some new JSON functions. So we have this guy here. His name's Kyle Williams. Those of you who don't know him, is a JSON SQL guy, but he uses FileMaker, right? So it's funny. So very, very, very funny. But he found the JSON functions already. He's very excited about them. So good. Continued improvement. Once again, I think the commitment to this, like Connor, you want to speak briefly about the bug fixes, 400 bug fixes across all sorts of areas, WebDirect and Pro and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I am very pleased about the focus on bug fixes. I come from a support background, and so we always try to strike a balance between features and bug fixes, and it always pleases me to be able to fix things that have been plaguing people. So I probably could talk about specific ones that you might have in mind. Was there any particular category that would be most appropriate?
Why don't you hit the WebDirect? Why don't you just bang on that? Jacob, can you bring up the bug list real quick for us? I think you were prepped with that on your screen somewhere. You had a keyboard, a kit, shade, or.
So WebDirect, I don't know if we break that out specifically in that document, but I can still talk about a little bit of WebDirect stuff. I think the biggest area that we focused on with WebDirect was trying to just make it more performant, and we tried that a little bit in 19.4 as well, and there were a couple of caching issues around CSS that we ended up fixing in 19.5. That was just sort of part of that work. And so if you ever experience things not rendering in the CSS correctly, maybe, between files or windows, that's something that should all be cleaned up in 19.5 at this point.
I was gonna say I was really pleased with the performance improvements and the I guess it would be the caching itself, but the optimization of the styling in 18.4. That was, for some customers, I've heard that was a fairly life-changing improvement for some of the more complex WebDirect applications.
Yeah, another area of big improvement. So there's a lot of bugs. I've seen a WebDirect section of bugs outlined somewhere in here, but there's a number of things where, like there's a whole right there, web publishing.
Yep, that's
performance there, etc. Yeah.
So some of this list, I guess you could call that bug fixes. It looks like it's mentioning the OAuth sign-in script as well, which we can talk about if that's interesting to you. On the bug fix side, I know that there was one that's plagued people for a long time, not being able to export container contents where the name would contain like a space or a plus sign.
Yep.
Also fixed in 19.5.
Yeah, there was a number.
Jacob mentioned the performance improvements on WebDirect as well, and our testing shows that to be pretty material. Is that right, Connor?
It is. I'm interested to hear, Jacob, have you seen anything similar? Do you have specific numbers to share on your test?
We don't yet. That's Hansa. Hansa.
Okay.
Hansa is the he's from the Czech Republic, and he is a performance crazy guy. I love it. He goes in, he dives in deep, and I'm sure he's working on this today and tomorrow. So over the next week or two, we'll have some pretty solid numbers on that, which will be good.
Yeah.
We have a suite of test solutions, Richard, that we run. We call it our PSR suite for performance and scalability and reliability. I assume Connor can correct me if I'm wrong, but we throw a lot at that and do performance testing. And we saw material improvements on the WebDirect side, like better than 50%. But it's one of those things where it's a test environment, and real world mileage may vary depending on your solution. So don't overpromise. But Jacob's confirmation or validation is appreciated, because we expect customers will see material difference in WebDirect performance.
Yeah. So I've been taking a lot of customers from either the last 18 server patch or usually 19.2-ish. And for people who access primarily through WebDirect, I've gotten comments, basically.
Awesome.
It's not, no, I can't give you numbers or that sort of thing, but some of our customers, they have one or two back-end people basically that use Pro, and everybody else is on WebDirect. And yeah, for those solutions, not all of them, but I've gotten comments basically going, yeah, it's basically they go, it's faster. And I'm like, oh, cool, great. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, I mean, if you can feel it, it's generally a pretty decent performance improvement, right? You're not noticing 1% performance improvement. So that's great to hear, man. It's great validation. Thank you.
Good stuff. So tons of bugs in here that were fixed, upwards of 400. Other bigger features, right? Well, I mean, we mentioned this one, this is Ubuntu 20.04, right? I guess it changes the instead of Apache, Jacob, I mean,
it uses Nginx. Yeah. Okay,
so and when you guys mentioned this, I'm like, what's Nginx, right? I'm like, so.
Jacob, you want to take that one?
Sure. So Apache and Nginx are both web servers, and that kind of fills a specific role. So if you're thinking about you're accessing WebDirect, WebDirect itself is kind of an application, a program running on the server that's doing we'll call it the FileMaker part, right? I'm intentionally kind of ignoring parts of it because I want to elucidate what the breakout is. So the web server itself is what your browser is talking to. It sits in front of the actual WebDirect application, if you want to think about it that way. And so it handles I'm going to load up WebDirect. All right, your browser talks to Nginx or Apache or whatever, IIS on Windows, and says, hey, I would like to load the WebDirect landing page. And Nginx, Apache, IIS, they go, oh yeah, I know where to locate that on my hard drive, or whatever it needs to talk to get those things done. I'm particularly pleased with the switch to Nginx because it's my probably oldest love. About 15 years ago, I did a bunch of testing on web servers because I'm that type of
My
person.
understanding is it's a very performant web server as well, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
we can believe it to perform really well, and I believe it may be the most popular web server on the planet right now. Is that sound right to you? I heard that from somebody.
Yeah, I don't
You're not ready to
know,
commit, but okay, I'll look that one up because I think that might be true. But
it's
I wanna verify.
it's definitely competitive in market share with Apache. A lot of people use it for other uses because it doesn't only do web serving. It has several different sets of proxying that it can do, where people will put Nginx, for example, in front of Apache actually, to have multiple backend servers that all kind of, they're multiple things handling the requests at the same time. And you can use Nginx pretty efficiently to like keep track of which servers overloaded and redirect based on which ones kind of got some free time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Richard, I hope we didn't melt brains with this.
No, it's quite. That's why we bring him, because if we want to dig deep and geek out, we can do that. So, questions along the way. It's kind of quiet. Michelle Gravel says my Windows 10 edition is home (standard) and I do not have any problems. So, there you go with that. So cool. Yeah,
I believe standard, though, to the earlier question, is Microsoft's nomenclature for the business OS, not the home OS. I don't think that that's a new naming for home, is my understanding.
Okay. Pretty
cool. Well, there's some quality of life bugs in there too, Richard. Like people have been asking, we got a big list, and you try and get to the ones that are just those little, karate chops to the neck once in a while. I think, Connor, we had some in the script workspace, right, that we cleaned up a little bit.
Numbering. There was fixes in numbering in script workspace. Text indenting, doing funky things. I read through all these last night. It about put me to sleep. I did have a question right there. We see down below on Jacob's thing a deadlock. I've heard this referred to before by Clay, some other engineers. What is a deadlock? And it sounds bad.
I'm not sure I'm the best person to explain what a deadlock is really, but the way we tend to see it manifest in the product is the application hangs, and so this is where we need to look at the threads and see if maybe like some threads are waiting on each other, and so it's sort of a loop in that sense.
Okay. So a traffic jam of some type, yeah. Because I know about record locking. We spend time talking to people about that and what to expect. But if your own threads, your own processes run into each other, then yeah. All right, cool. Jacob, can you scroll for us? Because there's quite a bit here. We'll just kind of like motor through this stuff. So performance.
These are all the like bug fixes. So I'm in the addressed issues section, not in the features or updates or whatever. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff down here.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a ton. Yeah, down here is all the fixes for web direct,
PSOS, giant objects. Yep.
Yeah,
session identifiers got corrections.
There's a web viewer fix, one or more web viewer fixes that were people couldn't. Web viewer, if it was a button, wouldn't work on Windows. All sorts of things, right?
Nginx, yes.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm confirmed is correct. Is that what's going on?
We're simply pointing out that you're brilliant, right? So there we go. No charge for that, by the way. It's free. So
thank you for the support.
Yes. Yeah, so
I heard the rumor, so it's good to see some data on it. That's great.
It's interesting because I just had never heard of that until you get these Unix people, right? Because I was a Mac guy, then I do some Windows stuff, and then a little bit of Linux stuff, and then but I never geeked out with it, right? Andy, we were always doing FileMaker. Geek for me was like ODBC drivers that were not behaving well, and I'm trying to beat my head against the wall. So someone says, it's engine. I didn't know how to pronounce it. Of course, it's engine, right? So someone's being cute with the spelling. But yeah, it's clearly a dominant tool, a very dominant tool, right? Cool.
Yeah. Oh, factoid, if you've been to any of RCC's websites in the last about 3 years, you used it directly. It's what serves all our websites. So.
Okay, cool.
I think the main thing for me, for customers looking at 19.5, is we're not going off with some crazy web server that nobody's ever heard of, right? This thing's trusted, it's used out there, and that's what we're shooting for. We need reliability. So.
If you folks have questions, now the time, because we got Andy here and we've got Connor, and they Andy is I don't know, kind of a corrupted engineer person that's been stuck in marketing, and he's trying to find out how to escape. And Connor's QA, quality assurance, right? So.
I'm kind of like Richard. I used to develop with this platform. Now I act like I still can. Is that right, Richard?
That's actually what we do. I spend about half a day a week building something is what I do, right? So,
There you go.
so it reminds me how to go into field definitions, right?
You had mentioned the JSON earlier, Richard. I don't know how many of your new audience are going to be parsing JSON, but we have a new function there that is important to folks that are throwing a fair amount of it. So
we want to talk about it real quick. I haven't played with it, so I can't talk to that right now.
Yeah, I heard Bev Voth doing a presentation at a developer meetup a couple of weeks ago and having some issues with some data typing. And I believe that that's why we were doing this. But I don't know, Connor, are you able to enumerate this function a little bit?
This one's got an interesting origin. The idea from it did come from just the need to simply validate whether a given block of something is JSON or not. And the idea sort of expanded from there to be able to return what type of information you're looking at. And so it'll return a numeric value for the data type that I think we do document. That's like either JSON or string or number or null. So there's like 6 of them.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of improvements that were made in here. And I know that Kyle, if you have anything to say, Kyle says I created a custom function for getting JSON element types. It was super complicated function. Nice to see a built-in function for that. So the technical people are clapping for you, right?
We get a lot of good feedback from our ETS community on these new features. And this is one where it's a good example of where like we had an idea of what the implementation should be like, but the community had a better idea. And so we deferred to that.
There is a question. I'm going to pivot briefly here for Tim. Tim's asking a question here. Tim on YouTube says, I do not see a link to download on the download page for the new FileMaker server. Typically, the download links are updates. If you need a clean install, you need to go back to your license document where you purchased FileMaker and click the button and it will bring up your license download page and it will have that on there. So if you go to, Jacob, if you want to do that real quick, just go to claris.com and show them this real quick, everyone. Just bring everyone up to speed. And if you go to the very bottom, you'll find updates and note releases, right column, second to the bottom, that one. And this is where in the years gone by, they used to have full installs. These are all updates now, like 87 megabytes for the Mac install. That app is 400 or 500 megabytes. So that's just a patch. So a patch is up to that. So if you need a clean install, you need to check out your licensing document that you got as part of your purchase. If you're part of our training bundle, you'll get an email on that. We'll show you where to get that. Although, to be honest with you, at some point, I mean, the server, getting a clean install server is more important. On Pro, you should be able just to run the update, right? At some point over the next week or two, whenever that clicks over.
Yep.
But yeah, with server, I'm always, just me personally, I'm always nervous about running an update on server because there's enough times where it works and enough times where it just destroys the server. Nothing, I'm not picking on the QA guys. It just happens, right? I don't know what else to say, right? So you patch the server and suddenly it's on fire and exploding. Right. So
yeah.
Well, in that case, it wasn't Connor's fault. It was some other guy. So
yeah.
As I say, I've been pretty pleased with the updates or the upgrader for 19.4. I did have 19.3 bite me pretty hard though.
Yeah, so that's always one of those things you got to watch out for. Well, Nathan is asking an open-ended question here, so I'm gonna some of these open-ended questions are gonna pop up. I'm gonna throw these out you, Andy. So pull on your deep boots, your waders, and we're gonna wade into the water here. Will Claris ever have their own offline syncing function? Question mark.
Yeah, we think about syncing a lot. It's a tough challenge because there are so many different scenarios and methods of sync that one could want in a solution, right? And right now there's this nice collection of third-party sync platforms that will either do full file syncs or specific syncs that you can control programmatically and scripting. And so it's a really tough nut to crack. We think about it a lot. As we're implementing the Claris Studio functionality with the Claris Pro platform, there's implicit syncing in that platform to harmonize the data set between cloud and our on-prem stuff. And that's actually a big area of our focus right now to make sure that all your data is available everywhere. What we can learn from that and how that may flow through to sort of pure play, if you will, or just classic FileMaker modeling, TBD, but no announcements in terms of a functionality or feature update coming there, but it's not something we're ignoring. We think about it every day.
Yep, it's a highly requested item, and it is. I've actually presented on sync at DevCon before years ago, and the definition of what sync is generally varies from organization to organization. So
yeah, and I've had developers tell me, and I've had strong opinions that we should never try to do that. And then I changed my mind, right? There's scenarios where we absolutely could do some sort of simple synchronization, maybe at a broad level or something, but it's just a tough nut to crack. But it's in our backlog, and we'll prioritize it when the time is right.
Media Sandbox on YouTube says, "What's the latest from the Claris marketing department?" It's an open-ended leading question, Andy. I just floated a softball across home plate for you.
Oh my gosh, what is the latest? Are you asking for internal politics or new product announcements? Like, what do I do there?
Well, I heard a rumor that Andy was applying for the VP job of the marketing department, but is there any truth in that whatsoever?
I don't need the VP job, Richard. I just act like I'm one and then make stuff happen. It works out really well.
Okay.
I had to twist some arms to get Connor here today, and I was successful. I'm so happy about that.
Well, I'm glad he's here. Hopefully, Connor, hopefully this is a positive experience for you, right?
Oh, certainly.
Because you're talking to hundreds and hundreds of developers right now. It's quite a few.
Hey, to the question, Richard, because I don't want to act like I'm dodging it. We've got a lot on our plate right now. We're preparing. We did I did the webinar with Pete and Brad now almost 2 months ago to talk about the future of the platform, Claris branding for FileMaker, as well as the new cloud technologies that we're going to be augmenting it with. We're preparing the roadmap for how we describe that and bring it to market effectively so that all FileMaker developers know that they've got a really strong future with us. We have a vision and ability to implement that, and we want to tell that story the best we can. Richard and I were here, a couple of weeks ago talking about the other thing we're wrestling with is how do we make sure people understand that if they're not ready for Claris Pro and Claris Server, that FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Server is still there for you, and you can continue forward in confidence there until you are ready or wish to adopt the sort of new, broader tool set. And so we got a lot of thinking going on about that. We've had a ton of success with the Problem Solver Circle program that we've been running the last 6-7 weeks, which will run out of time, I guess, at the end of this quarter in about 2 weeks, if I'm doing my math. But that's been really great. And we have some customers that have been all in on that. And that, to me, that's very encouraging because it suggests a desire to give developers the space to innovate throughout organizations, right? That was what Problem Solver Circle is about, is making the developers on this live stream, giving them the tools with which to go into their business and then just go build apps everywhere and innovate everywhere and do what needs to be done in that company. That's what the program is about. And we've had hundreds of customers coming to us saying, yeah, let us do that. We want our developers to cut loose. So we're excited about those things. The engineering team is cooking up lots of new great stuff that's going to be coming in the coming months. So we're trying to prepare for that and understand it so we can describe it accurately. So I'm probably going long on the answer, but to say that the marketing team over here is really busy and I'm excited to be part of it. So thank you for the question.
Good question. All right. Other questions from folks?
A couple Discord questions. These are more technical. So back to that.
Okay.
Does the perform JavaScript and WebViewer script work now in WebDirect?
Connor, I think it does, but I would like to get a true confirmation of that.
I don't think there's been any change in 19.5 in that area.
Okay.
So
I could be wrong. I swear I heard something about this, but we should look into it.
Yeah.
I know there was a breakdown, but that had been previously patched. If there's a new breakdown on it, I have missed that. So, but yeah, we talked about that yesterday. We were doing some calendar action yesterday. We were talking a little bit about the JavaScript banging back and forth between a web viewer, and we were using a Mac at the time, but using a web viewer back and forth, which is really a huge integration capability. It's really quite good. What else we have here, Jacob Taylor, as we're going down our list here?
I actually have a very, it's not an exciting feature, but it is an exciting feature. When your licensing expires, it will ask you for to feed it a new one. Yeah. And there's a menu option. Yeah. Well, it's I may have even filed that bug at some point. And it was a little user hump of, somebody changes their licensing, something expires just a little too long and they get a new key, and it previously required a complete like cleanup and reinstall. And yeah, I know we can go in and there's locations that we can delete and stuff like that, but to write those directions out for users is kind of difficult. So it's really great to actually see, nope, there's UI for that. You can click buttons and say, nope, feed it this file, please and thank you.
Okay.
In addition to that, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Connor. Go. 'Cause I'm gonna change topics.
You mentioned that it prompts when you're about to expire. In addition to that, you can also replace it at any time now from the menu. You can just go up to like help and replace license.
So let me hit something here real quick for those of you about this, and I'm gonna kind of get ready, Connor, because I'm gonna throw the football to you, but you're running down the field. It's like an 80-yard bomb. Here we go. So
Okay.
save a copy as XML. So for those of you who watch the live stream, we have referred to this for brand new people as the Star Trek transporter, right? So the idea is that you step on the transporter pad and it dematerializes your sorry person into little molecules and it shoots you through the air. The save a copy as XML is Claris's Star Trek transporter for your solution. It takes the FMP12 file and it breaks it down into basically a text document, for lack of a better word. And it allows you to then take it somewhere and rematerialize it. Now, it's never been officially completed. It's a feature that's kind of perpetually in beta or alpha or whatever we want to call it. They call it a preview mode, which means it's not done and they're working on it. There's a ton of updates to it we see here at the bottom of the page. And so for those of you wondering, save a copy as XML, it's very boring, but this is the Star Trek transporter. It's the idea where you could take modules out of file A, glue them into file B. So Connor, I mean.
Sure. I want to make sure that I'm not confusing here the save as add-on with save as XML. That currently the save as XML, the XML that it outputs, we're not really intending for that yet to be able to be taken back in somewhere else. That's an exciting thing.
Correct, because we did a video of this where you do that, and it's literally like Star Trek where you beam yourself back in and you're missing fingers, and right? And so it's not done. And if it's the same, we are actually doing it to save people who got orphaned on the
end of Cloud 1.
End of Cloud 1, the product line, and they lost their ears and they couldn't get off, and we were beaming their off, losing body parts, but we would get almost the entire solution off.
Yeah. But you're right that if we were to do that someday, then the work that we're doing in 19.5 is definitely a prerequisite work for that.
Yeah. You keep moving the ball forward or moving, I don't know, like
now what you can, the value that we have immediately from it is being able to quickly do a diff to see what's changed in the file. And so I think that's where the interest in tackling this now came from, was for that purposes. And so what we've added is a whole lot of just more robust metadata about everything in the file, trying to put UUIDs everywhere so that's part of it.
And the UUIDs were consistent for external references and things like that, right?
That's right.
So for those you just
this will support the analyzer tools that are out there for developers that want to use those. Is that fair?
That to me,
it's obvious perhaps, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what we're talking about. So thank you.
Yeah, basically, if you could take a FMP12 file and break it down to its component atoms, right? Then you could rename things, you could change and copy. Long term, this continues to be this huge, paradise or oasis in the desert that we keep walking towards, and someday we hope that we will get there. But being able to do this currently, it's never the XML dump is never perfectly complete. But you're saying that we could do a difference between a previous solution and a current solution. You could see where the changes are at, which is
and I can't claim that it's 100% yet here either, but it's like a lot more. There's only just a few areas that we're lacking in at this point. And so we still see the value in doing that. But what we have is quite a big leap forward.
Yeah, no, it's clearly you're moving the ball forward. I always get nervous when there's no love paid to that area of it, but it's a big deal because suddenly, really, you see, proof guys doing some stuff with their products, and maybe 360 Works doing stuff with deploy. where they're trying to like patch apps and doing them on the server and this sort of thing. But that's a tech that they really need to have hammered 100%. And it's exciting. We need this. So,
And this is available on server now. Is that right?
Yes.
With server-side scripting.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Which
you
is
can. I think there's like
potentially-
a special script that you can have it export on a schedule, or perhaps one of these new magic scripts that we've seen.
All we did was we made the save as XML script step compatible with perform script on server. So yeah.
Because I think I remember, Richard, you were chatting that Vince was super excited about the performance that.
Yeah, no, it was Vince. It was Vince, or yeah, he was talking about it went from minutes to seconds, kind of thing. Anytime we can have the server do something for us, right, doing the sorts for us or doing the sub summaries or summaries for us, that's always a big performance boost. Assuming you haven't overtaxed your server. We have a handful of customers who won't buy big enough drives and big enough servers. They're not going to benefit. But if we can convince you to spend a couple more bucks per month, another $20 or $30 a month, get a better server, then yeah.
Honestly, I've been putting those customers on 19 anyway, because the record locking improvements, which are not even the star of 19.5 at all, but previous versions, it's been a lot of work and focus. That just the performance from that alone, even they're like, I don't want to pay for it's significant improvements for them. So they can squeeze their pennies a little harder.
All right,
Richard,
cool.
can I ask you a question and maybe call a quick audible? I always like to try and reserve enough time to go along on these things, but I cannot today. I think Connor and I both have a meeting coming up here in 4 minutes. So you're going to be doing more about this tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to continue the conversation tomorrow. We're going to walk through a Linux. We're going to build the Linux server for people. We're going to walk through the Linux build. We're going to build a server from scratch for them. They're going to see that. And so if you have questions about watching how this goes in Linux, Jacob's going to do this. And we'll also pick up more questions along the way. So yeah, that's where we're heading tomorrow. So we're going to pick up the conversation.
Great. I really appreciate you doing this, Richard. I think it's important to get the word out on this particular release. It seems, on the surface may be boring. It's a lot of bug fixes. That's not boring. It's a big deal. And I think there's some new, good stuff in here. I think the live text has some interesting potential. I'm dying to know what you all come up with that. So we're excited about this one. And this is setting the table for the future with the platform. So really appreciate you giving us the time to talk through it, and hope our customers are enthused to get on it.
Absolutely. So we'll catch everyone tomorrow. I want to thank Connor and Andy, from coming to our event. And we'll catch everyone tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So I'm Richard Carlton at FM Train TV. We're signing off today. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.